Okay, so what we're going to do is we have an open response question from each QAO. And a lot of times we take those questions and use them as part of your learning. So what we're going to want you to do is we're going to go through the activity together, and we want you to think as a table. If you were to use this question, think what would the learning goals have been for that activity, and then how would you define success? How would you and a student know if they were successful with that activity? So we'll take a look at the activity first, which, as I said, was just an EQO problem. And just in case it's hard to read, I'll read it out. Cody gets a haircut. He measures the length of his hair as it grows back and discovers that it grows at a rate of 3 millimeters per week. Complete the following table of values for the linear relation between the length of Cody's hair and the number of weeks since his last haircut. So you can see the table, and they've only filled in the length for 1 week after the haircut. State the rate of change and the initial value for this relationship. You can see the two blanks, the rate of change and initial value. And then write an equation to represent this linear relation, where L is the length of Cody's hair in millimeters, and N is the number of weeks since his haircut, and they started the equation with L equals. So try to think first, what would the learning goals have been so that students would be able to do this activity, and then what would the success criteria be? How would you know if you were successful, or sorry, if the students were successful in this activity? So we'll give you about 10 minutes to just think about it. Okay, so I've heard a lot of good talk. Talked about learning goals, success criteria. So I'm wondering if people might want to share in terms of learning goals. What did you discuss at the table? When you talked about learning goals, what did you discuss?
I think it's interesting hearing all the different boards because we all have different kind of ways that we go at this. And so we discussed kind of how some of us are focused on the outcome and some of us are more focused on the process and the learning goal. And so we had some similar learning goals around the table, came up with I'll be able to write an equation by connecting information in various forms, whereas other groups were all about the connecting and then later the find the equation. But we all have the same information, just maybe with our emphasis or our board preferences in different areas.
And I think that's what Rob was saying. Like when we got together as a group, there's quite a bit of parallel, but there's also some differences too. And I think that's the main thing to keep in mind with this presentation, is that differences are okay. It's like when we're done today, we're not going to say there's one way of learning goals, there's one way of success criteria. You've got to make it work for you and your students. So
it's funny, James and I are from the same school and the same board, and we had the exact same thing. We're all at the same school. When we first started talking about learning goals, success criteria 2 years ago, we had a lot of different ideas and opinions and overlapping things that were different and stuff. So, this is not new, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, and I would say within our school still, not everyone, because you look at a whole department, some people go to different in-services than other people, so everyone's at a different point in their learning journey. But as a department, what we're going to be doing next year is a lot different than where we're at the start of the previous year. So we're all growing together, but everyone's going at their own pace, which is good.